Lee Povey turned Olympic coaching into a masterclass in emotional intelligence for startup founders. Now he's here on the Marketer of the Day podcast. He builds champions on the track to guiding high-achieving leaders through burnout and self-sabotage. And Mr. Lee Povey himself knows how to cultivate elite performance without sacrificing purpose or relationships. We're brought to you by dfypodcast.com, where your podcast becomes your most powerful leadership and visibility tool, because today we're talking about leadership with Mr. Lee Povey. We're talking about perhaps some of those emotional blind spots or myths that we believe, especially about masculinity and emotional resilience. We're here to set the record straight and pursue that life of passion and purpose. So, Mr. Lee Povey, how the heck are you?
Hey, Robert, what an introduction. I'm feeling great. I've just done 2.5 hours of pickleball. It's a bit warm here in Southern California, so I've just been chugging water to get myself alive again. And I'm looking forward to talking about leadership, my favorite topic.
I am as well. It's important to have that active lifestyle and to work hard and play hard. And so what about leadership has you just like really excited? What's your current focus and passion?
Helping people understand themselves so that they can show up as the leaders that they want to be. So I think what happens in the world is we get given these titles, or we earn these titles by success, and then we don't really understand what the job is itself and how to be great at it. I used to see this in the sports coaching world. You'd have really fantastic athletes that finish their career and they'd go, I guess I'll be a coach now then. And the difference between being an athlete and a coach is vast. Yet we think just because you're given the title of coach, you are now a coach and you understand what that means. And leadership's the same. Usually you're a good, either the people that I typically work with, the founders, they would have worked in smaller companies or maybe even larger companies, been a successful individual contributor. And then they go, hey, I have an idea. I want to do this thing. I'm going to go make this thing. And then suddenly they do it, they start making a thing, and now they have to lead other people. And while they might be brilliant themselves at what they do, leading other people is completely different. It's a skill set that luckily is very learnable, but we don't have a lot of teaching outside of, say, reading books on it. And then you've got to make sure that you're finding the right books to read.
Right. So we need to embody these things, and we also need to take them seriously and say, hey, this is a skill just like any other, and I need to learn it. I need to have this discipline. I need to pursue through those awkward stages, and I need to know myself and my strengths. That way I can successfully implement. And, you mentioned about this idea of like having the self-awareness, and I find myself like always like throwing myself into chaos, maybe on purpose, right? I have this friend that I haven't spoken to in years, but he's always real careful and really thinks things through. And I don't think I've ever like failed like unrecoverably, but I'll take on projects or I'll do new things and I'll be like, this really stretches me and maybe puts some unnecessary stress on myself. But that just seems to be the pattern that I go to in life. And it's like the entrepreneurial stereotype of kind of like sometimes biting off more than you can chew and pursuing the adventure. And how does that relate to you? Like, can you relate to that? Like, what kind of like scraps and scrapes have you been through?
I can really relate to that. I think one of the kind of triggers for me in the world is, let me put it this way. My purpose, and I genuinely mean this is what I feel my purpose is to make things better. That's what my life has been about. That's what I'm most drawn to, is how can I make this better? Be it a person, a system, a situation. I want to always leave things better than I found them. And the problem for me is seeing things that are dysfunctional, wanting to go and fix them when sometimes they're not mine to fix. Be it a human being that's not mine to fix, an ex-girlfriend that I should not have been trying to fix. It was my journey, not their journey, that I was getting involved in, or systems. And there's been broken systems that I've been drawn into fix that don't want to be fixed, or the key players in the system don't want to admit that the system is broken. And that can be unbelievably draining, overwhelming, tiring. And, it's one of the reasons why I work for myself, is because, I can now realize when I should be drawn into something, and I can also say, no, this doesn't work for me. And I've got much better in this career now as a as a high performance leadership coach of knowing who I should and shouldn't work with. And I think it's a vital skill for all of us. What are you good at? What are you not good at? And what do you need to avoid?
Ooh, I like it. And avoiding seems to be extra important, right? The locus of control, or you hear about the phrase like a closed system, or like the circulatory system, respiratory system, right? Your blood goes to certain parts of your body, but not all, because it would be bad if they did. And so it's important to have that reminder of some areas are not yours to fix, and some people are not right for you, but some people are, right? And there's some of these areas where you shine. And I know that you were diagnosed with autism later in life, and I know that you are big on the men's groups. So like, what's that all about? What do you have to share with us about just kind of like knowing yourself and working with others?
Yeah, so I had a narcissistic sociopathic father. And I don't say that lightly, like, the kids these days, they're a little bit of a narcissist. This man would have been clinically diagnosed, should he have ever actually spoken to a professional. And as a young boy, I had, what am I going to do? How am I going to cope with this? And my way of coping was just to be very independent and to control my environment very tightly. However, I didn't know what it meant to be a man. He was not a great example. I knew I didn't want to be like him, but I didn't know what I did want to be like. So I was having some chiropractic work done when I was training seriously as an athlete. And the chiropractor said to me, hey, some of this is like stress and kind of your lifestyle and your upbringing, and you should speak to somebody. So eventually he basically bullied me into seeing a therapist. I was like, I'm British and 21. We don't see therapists. But he was very loving and kind of gently cajoled me into seeing a therapist. I saw a therapist. And he said, I think it'd be really good for you to be around other older men. And I just didn't have really any good, reliable older men in my life that could kind of do that role modeling to me and that mentoring and support. So I did this weekend experience with a group called the Mankind Project, which is one of the largest men's groups in the world, volunteer organization, amazing organization. And got very lucky that my local group in Brighton was fantastic. There was a couple of therapists in the group and just a lot of really wise older men. And I had this immediate experience to be around the kind of role modeling that I was seeking, and not the kind that we see in media. You think of films like Drive is the one that always comes to mind for me, where the first 45 minutes of the film, Ryan Gosling, the protagonist, he doesn't speak. It's just violence. And, people look, that's what a man should be like. And that's not my experience of men. And that's not my experience of healthy men. So it was great for me to actually get examples of healthy men who were struggling, men who were succeeding, what they were doing well, what they were struggling with, and just hearing their stories. And I've been in and out of men's group for the last 30 years. I'm still in one now myself. I run them now myself because I think it's so important for people to have a space where they can come, they can be heard by other people. The rule of the group is no judgment. So you get to share what you're going through with 8 or 9 other people sitting there listening to you. And they're not trying to fix you, as we were talking about earlier. They're not taking responsibility for you. They're just here to listen to you. And if you ask for help, they'll provide you with help. But they're not rushing in to tell you what you should do. They're helping you figure out what you should do with yourself. And it's just incredibly empowering. And I'm very thankful that I had that experience.
That sounds wonderful. Sounds amazing. And you think, you're British, and you think about like Winston Churchill, his big thing was, well, you don't have to fix things right away, right? If you're kind of struggling with your mental health and your life purpose, like it is urgent, but it's not like so urgent that it has to be fixed in a week. Like you go to a group, you open up, you do the retreat, you verbalize, you explain, but it doesn't have to be fixed right away. Like the first step is just kind of knowing what you want and being able to express this. And then if it gets to the point where you need to ask for help, then that's another step. But it's like, it seems like a lot of people maybe don't know what they want, or they can't express. And that's like stereotypical men, right? It's like either we're kind of not aggressive enough, or then we're too aggressive and we're like Ryan Gosling, and we need to navigate. But then it seems like men are kind of maybe like laughed at or ridiculed for like getting in touch with their feelings. And so when you go to these men's group and the men open up, like, are there any recurring trends? Are there any problems that like come up a lot that maybe aren't properly addressed today?
Yeah, you covered so much in that. There's so much I want to address there, but I'm going to go back a little bit to talk about feelings, because I think it's a really important thing. So human beings We are designed to have feelings. That's part of the human experience. And you can be aware of them, you can ignore them, you can pretend they're not happening, you can be afraid of them. They're still happening. We're still having feelings. So one of the first things I do in a men's group is we acknowledge that you have feelings, and then we teach about what is a feeling, what are the primary feelings. So I like to work with 6 feelings: fear, joy, anger, sadness, interest, and disgust. And you being able to say, I feel afraid right now, or I feel sad right now, or I feel angry right now, and just noting it. And then we teach guys that feelings are not good or bad. So you'll hear a lot of stuff, in the press about negative feelings. There's not a negative feeling. There might be a negative experience that goes with a feeling. So you might lose a loved one. You might go through a breakup, and then you feel sadness. The breakup, the death of a loved one is a negative experience, and then there's emotion that comes with it. And if we just look at these emotions, let ourselves experience them, they tend to go reasonably quickly. And they're data. So I teach men that emotions are data. It's telling you about your experience in the world. And then from that emotion, how would you like to choose to be? And, some of the things you said, the patterns. Well, the first thing is that men don't have language. We get told at a young age, don't have feelings, turn those off. In the UK, it's stiff upper lip. Here, it's don't be a pussy, don't be afraid. All of these things to say, don't have your emotional experience. When you watch young children, boys and girls have the same range of emotional experiences. And then we start saying to boys, you need to be a man, you need to grow up. And you can't have feelings. And we're basically saying you can't use an important part of your brain to understand your world. So we are making men basically more stupid instead of more intelligent, because we're saying this part of your brain that is here to help you, stop using it. So then as adults, we now have to relearn how to use that part of our brain. We have to learn from that information, how would I like to choose to be? So I'm feeling something. What does it tell me about the world? How would I like to choose to be instead? So what I love giving people is choice. I help you understand your human experience. So the experience you're having as a human, how it ties to your experience as a child in your family system. So how you learned to adapt to the world. And then now, how would you like to show up as an adult? And often that's kind of letting go of that childhood adaptations, because you're not in that system anymore, right? You're an adult, you're out of it. The world is different. You want to behave differently as an adult to you did as a child. Then how would you like to choose to be instead? And, you said it earlier about how people want to be and what they want to do. But to get to that, you have to understand where you are now. And then you need some language around that to be able to explain and describe what's going on for you. When you have the language, and then when you have the self-understanding of, right, this is my experience, this is where I am, and then you can start naming, this is where I want to get to, then we can get the roadmap. What needs to change for you to get from here to here?
That's wonderful. It's innovative, right? Because you figure that, okay, as far as the emotional understanding, women have it figured out. It's built in. It's fluid.
They
don't need
still
help
have
with that.
lots of struggles. They still have lots of struggles, Robert. Trust me, I coach a lot of women as well, and they have pressures. They're often trained that they must look after everybody else, so they struggle to understand what they need. But men in particular are really struggling because we told them just to turn that part of their brain off.
So maybe women have too much and men just have nothing. We just have a blank slate. We're just like, hey, I'm like a caveman who's never learned any language, and you're giving me an encyclopedia, and I'm like, what are these words and letters? I have zero understanding. And so I like how you laid it out, because it's like it's mechanical, right? There's rules and there's steps, and it's maybe what us men need to adapt the chaos that is emotions into like this kind of step-by-step framework. And it's like, hey, here's how we approach it, because that's how we think and that's how we solve these problems. And especially where you hear about, I don't know if it's like a cliche or just what people say, but you hear about the loneliness epidemic, and how there's like these middle-aged men who are just kind of really just sandwiched in these generations where they're unhappier than ever before, and they're kind of like experiencing a weird decline. But I'm never sure how much of it is the sensationalism and how much is true. So what's going on with men, especially the middle-aged men lately?
Yeah. Sadly, it's very true. I think the statistic is men commit suicide at a rate 4 times higher than women do. And there's various reasons for this. One of the biggest reasons is men are much worse at creating and maintaining friendships than women are. So a lot of men's friendships are based on doing. So we do things together, and we call these side-by-side friendships. So you go and watch a game together, right? You're through each other watching a screen. Or you go and do sport together and you're side-by-side doing the sport. You're not actually connecting just to connect. Women are much better at doing face-to-face relationships. So typically their relationships are more like, we are going for a drink together, we're going for brunch together. So they're sitting facing each other, and there's more opportunity to share like that. Whereas when you're doing, it's typically more about what you're doing. It's more about the game. So you don't actually get the same level of connection and depth. So number one, there's how we relate like that. And then women just tend to be better as they get older at focusing on their relationships. Some of it is training. So women are told, as I said, your job is to make sure everybody else is okay. Me and my wife were talking about this yesterday. If you think about the toys that we get, right? Boys get given toys to build something and get that message from a young age. Your job is to build, to make, create. And women get given things to look after. Dolls, practice looking after it. Cooking set, practice looking after everybody else. So that's the messaging we get. And it's not right for everybody. Like, some women need to build and some men need to look after people. So we get this training from an early age that doesn't fit. And then what happens in middle age for men is that first relationship breaks down. They're doing what society told them. So they're working hard, they're successful, they think, but they don't have relationships. So the relationship breaks down with their partner. Their partner's better able to move on because they have a better support network. And the guy doesn't have a support network. He falls into depression and loneliness and commits suicide. And it's a real thing, and it's quite troubling. And then we also have this epidemic of young boys right now that are failing in schools. They don't have teachers that are male, so they don't get male role models of what to look for. Often they don't have fathers at home, which is a big issue for them. So again, they don't have these male role models, and they're just not quite set up in the classroom to succeed in the same way that girls are. So we've gone from, in the 70s, twice as many women leaving university. Sorry, in the 70s, twice as many men and boys leaving university as women. And now it's completely flipped. And it's going to be twice as many women leaving with degrees as men. So we've got all of these young men that are failing, can't get decent jobs. Their sisters are out in the world and succeeding, and they're in their parents' basements. So yeah, it's a problem, and it's a problem that society isn't dealing very well with. And this is why we're kind of seeing the rise of this male aggression that is not helpful.
Right, not at all. And it's scary, but luckily there's time to course correct the ship, and that's especially why we're talking about this now. This the value of relationships and emotional intelligence. And I have to admit here, Mr. Lee, like, it's something I struggle with, right? I'm always trying to say, like, well, how can I, like, that's why I do the podcasting, right? How can I talk to more people? Because it sucks to need friends when you need them, but it's not a thing you can just figure out overnight, right? You have to build these things over time, and we need to get these connections. And there was some comedian I heard once that said, like, adult men have, like, they have exactly 3 friends, right? There's the friend from high school that maybe you call, but you haven't seen in person in 10 years. You have the coworker where you know your each other's first names, but not last name. And then you have, like, the wife's friend's husband, and you watch the football game together. And, like, it's like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. There's kind of like 3 different aspects of superficiality as far as a friend. And so, like, what can be done? Like, obviously there's the awareness that these men's groups exist, but if some men says, I relate to all the stuff you're talking about, I feel the loneliness, I feel left behind, and I feel like I'm smart and skilled enough to know things aren't right, but not smart and skilled enough to fix the problem on my own, what can be done?
Yeah. So, this is a frustration for me, Robert, that we have lots of people talking about it, but not offering solutions. And I genuinely believe the solution is men's groups. It's somewhere that you can come, you can every week meet another guy or meet a group of guys, talk about your things, get support. And I see the power of these groups that I run, and I've been in myself and still am in. And I have a desire for more. I want to create another local group. I've got, so my own group that I'm in, for me, that's every Wednesday morning. We do that at 6:30, and it's a bunch of guys that I met in San Jose before I moved down to Southern California, and we still keep in touch, which is wonderful. But we see each other in person maybe twice a year, as you said. So I'm going to create a more local LA group where I can see people in the flesh a couple of times a month rather than a couple of times a year. So I think we just need to publicize this more. These groups are out there. Go and find them. If you're listening to this and this is resonating with you, as Robert said, just Google men's group near me and you will find something. There's more than people realize. And I hear a lot of podcasters kind of talking about the value of, say, AA. These groups are similar to that. You just don't have to have the addiction element of that, right? You can get and speak to other people and talk about your life and be heard. And they are life-saving. And guys in my group, you see them thrive. You see them realize that they're not alone. One of the most powerful things that happens in the group is a man shares something he's struggling with, thinking that he's alone and he's unique. And I pause him and I say, I just want to check, did anybody else experience this? And a bunch of hands go up and go, yeah, I've struggled with this too. And you see the relief on that person's face where they go, I'm not alone. Human beings are designed to be in community. If we go back to tribal times, if you got ostracized by the community, that was a death sentence. You didn't survive, which is why it feels so painful for us to be lonely, which is why people commit suicide when they're lonely, because we're not set up to live by ourselves, although society's pushing us more like that. So I think we have to be intentional and create these spaces to come together and look after each other.
It's quite a weird paradox, isn't it? That loneliness is bad and crippling, but then the social anxiety or the hesitation to go and check out one of these men's groups also holds you back, but it's the thing that you need. And the thing, and we're isolated because of social media, but we're also de-isolated a little bit because you can go and do this searching, and there are the Zooms and the Googling, and you can just find what works for you. And it's like the resources are out there, and we need to know that they are out there. And so there's been so much just of like ahas and light bulb moments that we've been having here, but you're the star of the show today, Mr. Lee Povey. So in these last few minutes of our podcast conversation, is there a missing question that you think I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
I don't know if it's a missing question. I would like to leave the listeners with, how can you be kinder? I think one of the problems we've got in the world now is we've forgotten kindness. The marketing we get is we need to have stuff. We're marketed all the time. You got to have more. You got to consume. And then that creates this disconnect because we focus on making money so that we can consume things. Yet if you look at the work of the likes of Daniel Kahneman, a fantastic psychologist, he could quite clearly show that having things didn't make you feel better. And what made you feel better was connection with other human beings. So I always think, what is it that I can do to be more connected to people, to my friends, to the people that I care about, and to make new connections, so starting this pickleball and being friendly with the people there and asking them about them, and instead of just completely focusing on pickleball, learning something new about the people there every week, feeling that connection. And how can I be kinder? How can we be kinder? When I think about, people whinging about homeless people, and there's no curiosity about how did this person end up in this situation? What happened to them? How did they go from often being a normal person to being in this situation? My wife employed somebody that at one point in their life was homeless, who's now an incredibly talented therapist, who came back from serving for their country, had some, depression issues with that change, ended up being homeless. And now they've got themselves out of that through the help and generosity of other people that supported them. So I think a lot about what can we do to be of service to others, and that's where I think real joy in life is connection and being of service to others. It's why I do these podcasts. I'm full. I don't need any more clients. I've got 2 spaces in my men's group, so if you listen to this, you want to join a men's group, give me a shout. But otherwise, I'm busy. I do these because I think it's really important to help people hear from somebody like me about what they can do to make their life better. And by better, I mean more connected, more friendship, more companionship.
That's wonderful. It is important to ask these better questions and to be curious, and especially be curious and asking questions about how can I be more kind? How can I ask somebody about themselves? And he reminded me, I had this friend way back when when there was a new coworker in the office, he'd make it a point to just go and say hi to that new person because so few people did. And sure, it is kind of weird and awkward. And us men say, well, what's the point? Why am I doing this? What's in it for me? What's in it for them? But it's like a good thing to be doing, right? Similar to you and raising your awareness about the men's group, and that there is this possibility of making mature masculinity possible and tapping into our own leadership. And so I know that you said that your dance card's full, but we still want to promote some resources. So if someone said, okay, well, I'm a business owner, entrepreneur, maybe I've been disconnected from family, life, purpose, my passion, enthusiasm, whatever, what are some next steps to get that magic back? How do they find out more about you and the resources you provide?
Yeah. I mean, I have a waiting list. So if you're listening to this and you think you'd like to work with me, let me know. We can get you on the waiting list and I will get to you and I will help you. I think one of the best things to do is to go to my website and join my newsletter. So every week I write a newsletter about something that will help you be a better human. And obviously it's very leadership focused. So it's typically what will help you be a better human so that you can be a better leader. And it's important for me in that newsletter that I'm leaving actionable items. So every time there's something that you can take away and use to be a better human being. And connect with me on social media. So LinkedIn, we have a Founders Catalyst group, which is a group for founders to come be with other founders, share their struggles and get support from other founders. And I'm on I'm on Instagram as well. I don't even run this stuff anymore. My virtual assistant does it all because I think it overwhelms me, Robert. So
and if it overwhelms you, that's okay. You delegate. So you're doing it right, right? You're the thought leader, you're the face of it, and then you have other people run the social media. But where we want you to go is to leepovey.com. That's LeePovey. Lee Povey is a high-performance leadership coach, and he wants to help you develop your Olympic mindset, especially if you're a founder, a leader, or a startup. He's a high-performance coach, and his purpose is to help you unlock your highest potential as a brilliant leader. So that way you can excel in creating, inspiring, and impacting the world for the benefit of all. It's not the benefit of all, I should say. It's not just about you. It's about the people that you help and those positive ripple effects, that upward spiral that you put out into the world, especially as you're looking to scale your company to $1 billion business or a successful exit. If you have a shaky foundation, then you're not going to help anyone. So get your connections figured out, your emotional intelligence, and Mr. Lee Povey can help you out. Whether or not you check out his social media or his content, or you have this conversation, that's leepovey.com is the hub. So that way you can just read up and educate yourself about the benefits of high performance leadership coaching. And before I let you go, Mr. Lee Povey, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to challenge you, try to stump you, or try to put you on the spot by asking about a fun quote or lesson that has served you in life or business. So what comes to mind as far as a fun quote or lesson?
As we were chatting earlier, I keep coming back to the David Bowie quote, and I can't remember the quote exactly, so you'll have to excuse me here. But the premise of the quote is, we are all just trying to get back to where we started. And this is the work that I do. So I see that we are born with certain genetic personality traits, and any parent knows this. If you've got more than one kid, same genetic matter, very different personality. So we're born with genetic personality traits. We meet the world, the world meets us, our family system, our social system where we live, it all shapes us. We take on these behaviors to survive. And then we get into adulthood and we don't need to have the same survival adaptations anymore. And our job is to let those go and get back to who we were and the gifts that we were born with. So I think some of the best work that I've done and the best work I've experienced as a human is uncovering my survival mechanisms. So those adaptations I made to protect myself as a child and to fit in as a child, and to let go of them so that I can be who I am and enjoy being fully in touch with myself and liking who I am. You know, as a youngster, there was lots of times where I didn't like who I was and who I showed up. And now I like myself. And life is a lot easier when you like yourself.
Yes, 100%, where you shed your skin and you become the person that you are meant to be. And so as we're on this journey, let's check out leepovey.com. And as you were talking, I was trying to find that David Bowie quote. The closest I got was, I don't know where I'm going from here, but I promise it won't be boring. So I don't think that was quite exactly it.
No, it's something like we're all just trying to get back to who we were born as.
Let me take trying to get back to who we were born as. We'll see if it gets us that in a couple of seconds, but if not, we won't let it hold us up, right? But
it's like, come on, ChatGPT, don't let us down.
Right. We're all arriving and departing at the same time. Aging is an extraordinary process whereby you become the person you always should have been. It's close.
There you
but
go.
not. Is that
That's
the one?
Yeah,
Okay.
aging is an extraordinary process where you become the person you should have always been.
Ooh, I like that. We'll put that on a t-shirt, right? So in our journey to become the person you always should have been, check out leepovey.com. Find him on LinkedIn, find him on Instagram, and especially just get tapped into the awareness that you should have that these men's groups exist, that you don't have to go it alone, that you can be around this community of others who, of course, everyone has different experience and perspective, but a heck of a lot of people can relate to what you're going through. They've been there. They can help. You're not alone. Check out leepovey.com. His phone number is 408-614-8562. LEEPOVEY.com. Check out him on social media. And thank you very much, Mr. Lee Povey, for enlightening us, educating us. I'm so glad that we spoke, and I'm happy about what you brought to us. So thanks for doing that.
Thanks, Robert. I'm just going to employ you to walk around all day introducing me to people. There's no way I could introduce myself as well as you introduce me.
Right. They call that a product endorsement, right? It's like if you're saying it, you're bragging, but if I'm your wingman, then I'm making you look good.
Awesome. Thank you, mate.